Marhaba, and welcome to today's session on the battle for brains, both human and virtual. I'm Brandy Scott, and I'm looking forward to discussing strategies for attracting and retaining knowledge workers in the time of AI. And I realise that you are our after-lunch audience today, so our speakers are going to do their very best to keep you awake and engaged post-carbohydrate. And it's great because we've got three speakers today who each bring a little bit something different to this topic. And we're going to structure this session a little bit differently as well. What we're going to do is we're going to have three presentations from three different angles. At the end of each one, I'm going to ask just one or two questions to dig in a little more detail. And then at the end of our presentations, we're going to turn over to you, the audience, for any questions that you might have. So if you think of any, just jot them down because we'll have 10 minutes at the end for you. So I'm going to briefly introduce you to our speakers, very briefly, if you wish to know more about them. LinkedIn will tell you a lot more about their achievements. But to my left, from Cambridge in England, we have Ron Young. He's the CEO and CKO of Knowledge Associates International. He advises the European Commission and the UK government. He is also quite the prolific author. And next to him, coming to us yesterday from New Delhi, we have Professor Surinder Batra, who is the former Dean of Academics at the Institute of Management Technology in Uttar Pradesh. He's also the Principal Consultant at the Centre for Interactive Management, India. And at the end, lucky us living right here in Dubai, we have Dr. Kate Barker, who's a global consulting partner, chief futurist, and board advisor to many. She speaks on the future of work around the world, and she is going to be the first one to address us today. Dr. Kate, the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you, Brandy, and it's delightful to be here. I'm certainly going to keep you engaged and energized. Where we are. So globalization, demographic shifts and technology advances are fundamentally changing labour markets at a time when policymakers are struggling with wage growth, growing global economic inequality and low productivity. We know that CEOs and leadership teams have been struggling in this volatile environment for some time. First, we started with COVID. Then we had the looming economic recession, rising interest rates, and of course the geopolitical pressures that we all know that's going on. In this unsettled environment, it's no surprise that CEOs and organisations and their leadership teams are prioritising, drawing down on creating, strengthening resilience across their organisations. But what we're seeing now is organisations are having to do things differently, fundamentally and significantly differently. We started with COVID, but now, 3 years later, we're also in a very different world. Recently, 2,000 CEOs were surveyed by PwC earlier this year, and it came to light that many of them realised that they wouldn't be in existence in the next 10 years if they continued to operate the way they did. So CEOs and organisations are acutely aware of the challenges we're facing. But how do we lean into this, and what do we need to be doing? What we're seeing happening is certainly the impact of four major trends impacting the work and the workforce. The rise of what we saw as Gen AI take over our worlds in December last year, rise to the occasion of fundamentally shifting how jobs are getting done. Typically, we've looked at productivity measured through manufacturing plants, technology sites. What we're going to be seeing now is Gen AI really look at targeting some of those middle management roles as we started moving out of a knowledge industry and more into a technology disruption space. What we're seeing in Gen AI is just the beginning. What we can anticipate in the next 5 years is it fundamentally shifting everyone's job. we're certainly seeing changes in how organisations and shifting organisational cultures. We're seeing employees having greater expectations of their organisations and how they want to be led and managed. And we still have this ongoing debate around hybrid working. And again, this is just the beginning of what we're going to be looking at is organisational shifts fundamentally changing how we work. We also know that there is an expectation around how leadership needs to shift. Our expectations on leaders has never been so empowering as it is today. We have more expectations than what we want from our leaders. And that expectation is being heard loud and clear. If something happens and a leader doesn't perform to expectation, we know it right around the world. And we've seen just out in the last few days play out with OpenAI and the conflict between the CEO and the board. So what does it mean for leaders today? It means we need to lean into these challenges, think for big ideas and suggestions and be more innovative about how we actually solve some of these problems. In 2019, just before COVID, I participated in a research study at MIT Sloan Management School, and we looked at whether leaders are being able to navigate these changes. Surprisingly, the results were quite frightening. And this is just before we headed into COVID. I presented these results to Davos, so you'll find them online, in Switzerland in 2020. Essentially what we found was organisations weren't prepared for what was required for the future. The skills, the talent, the mindsets, and the digital savviness wasn't at the level that they're expecting. And what we saw was turnover at executive level right through the ranks. The unpreparedness of being able to manage this created an influx and a focus from market analysts to analyse how our industries and organisations are performing. This is an interesting slide, and what I want to take you to take away from this is that what we see here is there's a number of individual and organisational competing priorities. These competing priorities are ramping up the pressures on both organisation and leaders of what they need to be doing into the future. The idea that we want innovation, but we want technology at the same time. The idea that we need to advance, but we need to manage regulation. And the idea as leaders, we're continuing to learn and grow, as well as being teachers ourselves. These competing tensions at play between organisations and leaders, it's no surprising that leaders are really struggling. We've gone back to study these organisations. 5,000 of them we conducted interviews, one-on-one and group interviews with CEOs. And I'm pleased to say over 60 of those CEOs were from the Middle East. We've done our initial assessment and we're going back to review this data next year. And I must say the results haven't strengthened. We are continuing to struggle with the same issues and challenges, if not more today than we did in 2020. So what does this mean for the future of leaders, leadership and yourselves? It's about creating a powerful leadership brand, about having organisations knowing what they stand for, who they are and what they represent. Ethics, conduct, employee belonging are all key critical components. And having a leadership team that understands what that stands for is really critical. We know when it unfolds and it doesn't go well. But we've certainly seen environments like PepsiCo, Virgin, and of course Microsoft succeed at this well. We also suggest is about creating communities of leaders. An organisation is as only successful as its leaders, and leaders cast a long shadow. The behaviours your leaders do are the same behaviours we'll find within the organisation and set the tone for the culture. If we're going to build skills, we're going to create that environment within the organisation, build women into leadership roles, we certainly need to be able to have the skills at hand.
Change is inevitable. We have known change to be slow and steady at first, and then sudden. But what happens when disruption becomes the new normal? Some of us were prepared, and others were not. But all of us were caught off guard by the magnitude of change. All failure is failure to adapt. Adaptability and action create opportunity. The future of work is here, and it came early. Work is no longer confined to assigned physical spaces. Each organization is a mini city in itself, with solutions at each touch point, trying to maximize the creativity, imagination, and productivity of a workforce constantly pushing the limits of possibilities. Workforce built of diverse cultures, ways of working, and experiences, all coming together for a common goal. In a world where everything is connected and systems are reaching a state of perfection, the only thing that separates excellence from just good enough is you. You are the central point in one of the most transformational times in human history. Fueled by exponential digitization, mobilization, and automation, amplifying each other to create a perfect storm of change. But the question is, do you want to drive the change or be driven by it? If technology is the how of change, humans are the why. It is time to go beyond technology to reach human insights. To adapt is to move ahead, and to be more resilient, you must start engaging with what could be and not just what is. The opportunity is here to be fluid, to create not just functional environments, but adaptive, intuitive, and humanized ecosystems. The future of work is not about integrating systems. It is about integrating experiences, a chain of seamlessly linked positive encounters that transcend technology and equip your workforce with means to realize maximum potential. Future doesn't just happen. You make it happen.
So I encourage you, inspire you, and challenge you to lean in to being what is to be human, to lead in a space where we're working with technology like never before. And that requires being the bold catalyst to lead and drive change. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Kate. A couple of quick questions before we hand over to Surinder. And I love the fact that you brought up OpenAI and what we've seen with Sam Altman. And I want to ask for your experience in the context of what we're talking about here today, which is attracting and retaining knowledge workers. Since you pointed to OpenAI, we're talking about a company here where 700 of the employees, the vast majority, are threatening to quit because of the way leadership, one of your specialties, has handled the firing of their leader. What would you have done differently? What can we learn from that, and what should have been put in place to retain what at the moment is a really sought after pool of knowledge, OpenAI?
It's quite a phenomenal example we've got at the moment. This is going to be no doubt a Harvard business case study we're going to be seeing. But the idea, of course, is Sam's now rejoined OpenAI, but the idea is his market value when he left and joined Microsoft was $10 billion. So we talk about attracting and retaining talent. One individual can change the market value of an organisation by $10 billion. And of course, then having a number of employees that were prepared to join him in that space leads you to say is that what we're looking for is talent. It's more than skills. It's about the individual, it's about the leadership, and it's about what you can create within an organisation that creates market value. And what we saw was that heavy negotiation going on. The second part I want to share with that is that the dynamic between the board and the management team and making those decisions about what they thought was best for the organisation without consultation and without thinking about the talent in the organisation and what they would need. Talent today have a voice and it's empowered, and they'll speak with their feet if they're not happy where they are, and they'll find a place where they'll go where they actually are rewarded and recognised. So we know that organisations that will rise to the top, will lead from the front, will be those organisations that create cultures that can actually attract, retain and develop talent around a culture and a value set that leads, inspires and empowers them.
And you're working with NEOM at the moment, just one of many
Right.
big names that you are advising. What are they doing in the regional battle for talent to attract the people that they want? What are you seeing that they're getting right?
Yeah, and funnily enough, across NEAM, and I also do work for the UAE federal government here for the last 4 years, is they're very open-minded for where we attract talent and how we bring talent into the region. The idea is that we're looking for experts to bring in talent and capability beyond what we're looking for. But what we're seeing now, which is unique, is that today's problems aren't going to be solved or resorted by one individual. They require teams, some different expertise, professionalism, and typically industries and countries. So what we're doing across both sectors is actually looking to bring in experts that can work collectively together to solve big issues. We talk about the next pandemic. We talk about crisis control. We talk about how we're going to solve infectious disease for the future. We're talking about how we're going to do green hydrogen energy in KSA successfully. And this requires a rounded group of talent, not just one individual. So thinking it more from a macro level, how we attract that. We're also looking at organisations and becoming more flexible with their employment contracts and terms and conditions. We know if we open the doors to attract a global workforce, that their expectations of how they want to work, when they want to work, are going to be very different from one another. And we know if we want that key talent that's going to make the difference here, we're going to need to adapt to those changing conditions.
Dr. Kate, thank you very much. Dr. Surinder, your turn, sir. The passing of the clicker. Excellent.
Good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank UNDP and MBRF to give me this opportunity to be here in this session. And I just realized that I have completed 50 years of knowledge worker, being a knowledge worker, in January this year. I started my career in a public sector company in India, and soon after my graduation, and immediately after that, I have been updating my knowledge through post-graduation, through doctorate, and working through different organizations, finally ending up in employment at IMT Ghaziabad in India as a professor at Indian academics and teaching there the subjects related to emerging technologies for business. My focus today is on the subtopic of reimagining knowledge work in the era of generative AI, Gen AI, and other emerging technologies. And I'm going to talk about 5 basic things: the transition from blue collar to no collar, learnings from the WEF's report, Future of Jobs 2023, Gen AI and its potential impact, consulting and knowledge work, and lastly, Gen AI as the new knowledge worker. That is the perspective which I feel is important for us to understand. Let me go to the Deloitte report of 2017, which had talked about the transition from blue collar to no collar. And as you can see from the slide, we had this concept of blue collar in 1950s. 60s, we came up with the concept of white collar jobs. And 70s, we came up with the concept of pink collar, which is basically emphasizing gender-related occupations. And thereafter, we moved into 80s with the concept of gold collar. And thereafter, we went into 90s with green collar, focus on environment and energy conservation. And then in 2010 onwards, we are talking about no collar. And no collar essentially means or implies tech savviness as well as freelancing as a way of work and being technologically very updated. There is another perspective on no collar, which also is from another report of Deloitte, which talks about 2 important points: that humans and machines should be working in a symbiotic relationship, each with its own specialization and abilities. And that is the world in which we are now living. And it also says technology is not only for automation, but it is also for augmentation of human capabilities. And that is the current thinking about the support which technology gives to human being. I will now refer to the report of WEF 2023, which also talked about the concept of new era of turbulence in job market in 2024, according to which 25% of the jobs will get disrupted in the next 5 years. And currently, about 34% of jobs are being done by machines, and reasoning, communication, and coordination are areas which are prone to automation at the moment. And it has talked about a lot of cognitive skills and attitude skills which will become important. And some of those I would just like to highlight, like complex problem solving, analytical thinking, creativity, data and technology literacy, multilingual skills. And among attitudes, the report talks about lifelong learning as an attitude, curiosity, service orientation, and many others. But these are the ones which, according to the WEF report, would become critical. And this is based on a survey of about 840 companies, 45 economies, and 27 industries. Now, coming to the specific subject of Gen AI, I don't think I need to tell what Gen AI is. Everyone today is aware of this. And it is, as we know, any type of AI to generate content of different kinds, and large language models as a substitute, as a subset of Gen AI. And these are, again, well-known models. Currently, many of us are using them. And Grok is the latest, the spicy one, which Elon Musk has claimed to have brought to the market. And the main thing is that it has extended the human capability to be creative and produce content that can be more detailed, significant, and in-depth. That is the beauty of the Gen AI-related content. Sorry, I think I pressed the wrong button. I was going through the report of McKinsey's released in June 23, and it has made some important points that Gen AI is supporting increase in productivity, innovation, and creativity, and 60 to 70% of knowledge workers' time will get automated. And also an important point that there will be a greater impact on occupations with higher education and higher wages. That will be a major change in the way Gen AI impacts as compared to other technologies. There are many risks with Gen AI. We are all aware, we have heard about them. I'm not going to those risks, but in the context of our today's topic, is job loss a critical risk? And here, one of the reports by Quantum Black and McKinsey gives us some confidence that it is not such a great risk. According to the survey done by under this report, about 12 to 25% of the respondents feel that there will be actually a gain in strength of the workforce. 23 to 37% say there will be no change, and 30 to 54% say there will be a drop. So overall, there can be some disruption, but in the net, the number of enrolled workers working either in the companies or freelancing will actually rise. That is a matter of comfort for everyone. I will now go to the expectations about Gen AI. I have shared here the hype cycle of Gartner, very well known. And according to this, Gen AI is on the peak of inflated expectations, as per the latest August 2023 hype cycle report. And we also know that there are certain misgivings about Gen AI. For example, Gen AI is not sentient. The famous scientist, Google scientist, said that Gen AI is sentient, which basically means his name is Blake Lemoine, and he said it is full of rich inner life with emotions. It is something which lives, which is something which is conscious. But that has been dismissed, that idea has been dismissed. It is not sentient anymore. That was a misconception. And secondly, even Sam Altman said that Gen AI is a stochastic parrot. In fact, all of us, according to him, are stochastic parrots, which means we can generate convincing content. We can generate content, but Gen AI doesn't understand the meaning of that content or the language which is being used. So that is a set of limitations about Gen AI, which have to be kept in mind. I will, in the end, come to one interesting report, a paper on BCG Consultants' experimental study. This study was done over 750 BCG consultants, and it gave a concept called jagged technological frontier. According to this concept, the frontier of technology is expanding in a big way, but it is uneven. Whatever we consider as possible by AI is actually happening, but there may be certain areas where we feel it is happening, but AI is unable to provide us the solutions. It is not able to provide the right kind of productivity or creativity for certain areas of difficulty. And they have talked about two basic models of collaboration. One is called Centaur, which is half human and half horse. And second is Cyborg, which is more seamless, granular blending of the power of human being and Gen AI or any other technology. I'll quickly finish with the last two slides. What I want to say is that Gen AI is also like a new knowledge worker. Just as we are individually, human beings are knowledge workers, Gen AI is a new knowledge worker who has to collaborate with the human knowledge workers. But important thing is who decides the goals of collaboration. That goal, that divership should remain with the human being, and we have to have certain attributes of human being which are very much in demand. Ability to get most out of Gen AI, that is very critical. Persuasion, negotiation skills, empathy, emotional intelligence, conflict management. And in fact, I also read somewhere that people are talking of skepticism as an attitude, as an important attitude on the part of human being. Perseverance as a part of human being skills in demand. Lastly, to sum up, I would say knowledge work is undergoing a paradigm shift and in the context of Gen AI and many other emerging technologies which are there and which may be coming in the future also. And as individuals, we need to be more adaptable. We need to be continuously learning and we have to keep increasing our knowledge readiness in order to stay relevant. Staying relevant for us as human beings, particularly in the context of emerging technologies, specifically Gen AI, would be very, very critical. And there is one last point which I want to say, that we require innovative HR practices to be able to provide that kind of harmonious human being and Gen AI collaboration. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Surendra. A few quick questions before we move on to Ron's presentation. I'm interested in what you said there about HR departments and what they need to do to make sure that this is a harmonious transition, if you like, a harmonious revolution. What can HR departments start doing now? What should they be focused on?
I think it's a very good question. And the onus on making the collaboration happen successfully between technology and human being lies very much on the HR department in terms of developing the necessary skills, developing the talent pipeline, and also looking at the well-being of the current manpower which is there. Because if you leave them alone, if you leave them to fend for themselves, then probably the kind of situation which happens in tech companies may happen, and that is not desirable. So HR has a big role to play in preserving and retaining talent and bringing in new talent. That will be an important thing. They have to think as if it is a collaboration and the knowledge workers as well as the Gen AI as a knowledge worker are working coherently, working collectively together. And the same kind of appraisal system, for example, if you are appraising a human being as a worker, we have to also appraise the Gen AI as a knowledge worker, see when it has to exit, see when it has to be trained further, and so on. So they have to be looked at as if they are also a substitute, not a substitute, but a complement to a human worker. That would be my take.
At the end there as well, you were talking about the need to, for the human workers to look at their skill set and where they needed to reskill and upskill in order to stay relevant. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you think are going to be the areas to invest in order to stay relevant?
Sorry, I did get your question.
Well, you mentioned relevance there right at the end and the importance for humans, really, to stay relevant and to make sure that their skills are the skills that will be needed once we have more of, well, I suppose, generational AI in the workplace. What skills do you see as being the most important for relevance?
Okay, again, it's a very, very good question. I don't think one can really bind down the specific skills which one individual should have. It will have to evolve based on the changes which are happening. And technological change is happening so fast that I cannot even bind today that if I know about Gen AI and prompt engineering, for example, then I have mastered the technology. So I have to keep on evolving, keep on looking at what changes are happening in technology, and be knowledge ready all the time as an individual. And as an organization, I think the organization has to also keep in touch with the trends around the new skills which are becoming important, and accordingly make sure that the employees within the company are being prepared to cope up with the new technology and also get prepared for the new technology as it is coming.
Okay, Dr. Surinder Batra there. I will turn now to Mr. Ron Young, joining us today, flew in yesterday from Cambridge in the UK.
Good. Well, first of all, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share with you today my perspective on the battle for brains. I'm very privileged to live in a university city where I live, I work, I teach, and universities have been doing a great job in developing our talent, of course. But I'm going to make a constructive challenge and say that they're institutions, and the world is changing so rapidly today that we need them to develop new curriculums as fast as they can for the global knowledge economy, particularly what I call and others call knowledge competences. So I'm based in St. John's Innovation Centre, which is part of St. John's College, Cambridge. And it's a great innovation hub, and a lot of talent likes to work in great innovation hubs around the world that contain many entrepreneurial startups, but also large companies. In Cambridge, in St. John's Innovation Centre, we have the British Standards Institution, which has a team there for data science and AI, and we work with them. And there's new knowledge and there's new ideas bubbling up every day, as every innovation hub has. And we try our best to help these organizations better manage their human knowledge and AI, and recently generative AI. But most importantly, it's human knowledge and AI working together, which is what we're interested in. So let's take a quick look at human knowledge and with regard to reimagining knowledge work. Well, I'm going to start off with a quotation of 30 years ago, Professor Peter Drucker, and I will read it to you here. It was an American perspective at that time, and he said, every few hundred years in Western history, there occurs a sharp transformation. Within a few short decades, society rearranges itself, its worldview, its basic values, its social and political structure, its arts, and its key institutions. And 50 years later, he said, there is a new world, and the people born into it cannot even imagine a world in which their grandparents lived and into which their own parents were born. And I know this well as a grandparent, absolutely. We're currently living through such a transformation. I believe we're living through a major, major knowledge transformation. So, if we look at the work I've been doing, particularly in this last 6 years, I've been working with principles-led standards. And principles-led standards from the International Standards Organization and from the British Standards Institution. Because principles, I'm going to put to you, are changeless and timeless, at least if they're good principles. And yet our technologies are changing by the day. So we need to go back to basics. We need to go back to some basic principles from time to time. I put to you that principles-led leadership and standards are the key to successfully navigating this increasingly complex knowledge-driven economy. And these standards that we work with, I'm briefly working with, and I've been working with 6 standards, all in a cluster of knowledge standards. And the key standards that you need to know now, that are the most important, in my opinion, are 2, which is the ISO 30401 Knowledge Management Standard, which was published in 2018 and is now currently being reviewed, particularly in light of generative AI. And the second one that we're working with is the ISO Standard for Innovation Management, which is currently 56002 and 56001 is coming out soon. And I do put it to you that principles-led tools are critical for organizations. So that's the human knowledge, and we have these powerful tools and standards and principles to help us. Let's take a brief look at artificial intelligence. And I do like this picture that I saw on the web recently. It was drawn, that picture was generated by AI, of course, and it's talking about AI transforming the world and how AI could change the workplace, change education, and superpower relationships in our daily lives. But in the battle for brains, both human and digital brains, we need to teach and we need to better understand the global knowledge economy that we've got to work in. And that global knowledge economy, there's a new set of principles, there's a new set of standards, and there's a new set of regulations now with AI that countries around the world are adopting. And this is just a snapshot for you. If anyone's interested in further details about this, please contact me. It's a new set of principles, a new set of regulations, and the 2 most important ones for artificial intelligence are the 22989, which is defining terminology and concepts, and 42001, which enables you to develop a management system in your organization using it. So finally, let me briefly say a little bit about human knowledge and artificial intelligence working together. Because, you know, despite the enormous benefits that AI will inevitably bring to us and has been bringing to us, there is much fear around the world. Fear of loss of jobs, fear of the safety for humanity. Basically, there's a lot of uncertainty around. So I really welcome Industry 5.0 because whereas Industry 1.0, 2, 3, and 4.0 were concerned and done some great work in automating tasks and in automating particularly manufacturing industries, we do need to not only go back to basics and principles, we need to rebalance and put far more emphasis on a more human-centric approach, which is what Industry 5.0 is aiming to do. But I just want to conclude by saying, well, a couple of other things, what others are saying. First of all, in my opinion, and in many people's opinion, it's going to be a turbulent transition for the next few years. And we need to prepare for a turbulent transition in our organizations, reskilling and developing the new competencies. If you look at what others are saying, briefly, the CEO of Google is basically saying that knowledge workers will be the most disrupted workers. And that's happening already, and we need to be prepared for that. If you look at Yuri Hovaly, he actually says that AI is the first tool that can make decisions by itself, and we should be very worried when AI can make its own decisions, essentially. And so, for me, in the knowledge economy, in the battle for brains, both human and digital, we need to teach, we need to better understand the global knowledge economy. And as there is now this new set of principles, there are new standards and there are new regulations, we must take that into account, which countries around the world are adopting now. And so that is, for me, the key is successful knowledge workers with knowledge competencies, back to basic principles, and successful knowledge-driven organizations that can successfully navigate this global knowledge economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. A couple of quick questions before I turn the panel over to the audience. If you want to put your thinking caps on, you have a few minutes there at the end. I'm interested by your challenge at the beginning to academia, particularly since you have a very seasoned academic to your left. With the rate of change that we are seeing with this revolution, is the 3 or 4 year degree still relevant? 3 or 4 years is a very long time.
If you ask Google, is the microphone on?
I think you need to get a little closer to it and you'll be fine.
If you ask Google, they will say 3 or 4 months now. The Google University, as they like to call it, 3 or 4 months you can achieve a lot. We need to, there's some tremendously good work being done already in the universities with it, but the rate of change is much, much faster than basically universities can keep up with. And I don't know what my university colleagues would say about that. We need new and better curriculums very fast.
You also mentioned there the battle of brains being also the battle for digital brains.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Are you just talking about physically getting the chips, the CPUs, or more than that?
It's that, and it's a lot more. Basically, I think the paradigm has changed. I mentioned that, in my opinion, this is a fundamental knowledge transformation. And therefore, we need to look at human brains and artificial brains, if you like, as a new collective. At the moment, we're not. At the moment, primarily because of fear and things like that, we see the human being competing with artificial intelligence. We need the paradigm which says that the two brains together, working together, can achieve far more than separately. That's what I mean by digital and human.
Okay, I'm going to hand over to the audience in about 2 minutes, but I've got one question first for the whole panel, inspired by Dr. Surinder, who put up Google's hype cycle there that made a lot of headlines a couple of months ago when they came out and said, yes, AI is going to revolutionize everything, but not as fast as you actually think. What do you all think is the most overhyped and the most underhyped aspects of generative AI? Dr. Surinder, as you put up the Google graph, the Gartner graph first, what do you think? The most underhyped and the most overhyped aspects of this?
Okay. Again, very important question. I think the most overhyped is that it can help you to do anything. It can help you to become productive, be innovative, be creative. And creativity is not something which can be with the machine. Creativity lies with the human being. And true creativity is actually with God. Even human being doesn't have that true creativity. So I feel that that is overhyped, that it will help you to bring in creativity. Second, if you ask about the underhype, I think underhype is its ability to help us in getting answers which can act as a starting point for our discussions or for our answering a particular query which we have in mind. For example, when I was trying to prepare for this, my immediate starting point was to put a question to ChatGPT or to Bard to say what it has to tell me. It is simple, but it is something which works. And I think that ability, even though all of us are using it, that ability can be actually made use of in a much more effective manner. And that is why I'm saying it is still underhyped.
Okay, Dr. Kate, the most underhyped and the most overhyped aspects of Gen AI?
I'll do it quickly because I know we're short on time. Overhyped, I think it's about thinking that it's going to have all the answers and all the information we need. It is working with an old data set. The information inside it we know is biased, and it has a time frame limited, and it's capped. It requires a level of interpretation and research and knowledge to use the data that we're going to be doing from Gen AI. Where it is undervalued, unless you're using it now, this is just the beginning of how we can integrate it into our jobs. And I would say very much now, if we talked about digital brains and human brains, is that we all are working alongside, if not instilling digital brains every day, if we are at any point using Gen AI or doing any research. This is just the beginning. This is just 12 months in. Play it forward in 5 years, and can you imagine what you can expect to achieve?
Thank you. And Ron?
I think that I was thinking about the most overhyped has to be sentience. I think without doubt. I think we're confusing there the ability of AI, generative AI, to actually now make sense of the world's knowledge, which is incredible. No human being can do it to the extent that that can happen, but it's not sentient. I think underhyped, I actually am going to challenge Gartner because I think Gartner's got it wrong. I don't think we're at that peak right now. I think we've got more to go. Oh. And that's my opinion.
Okay, I like it. Do we have any questions from the audience? Fabulous. 2 in the front, and that's... and 1. And we're going to go over by a few minutes. We're going to keep it really, really speedy, though. Do I have a microphone? Do I have a roving mic? Or are we shouting? There's a mic coming right to the front, please. Fabulous, just here. If you stand up, sir, there's a mic coming behind you.
Thank you very much, first of all, for the distinguished panelists. My name is Walid Al-Somali. I'm an advisor at the Saudi Arabian Ministry of Investment, previously a senior advisor with the Saudi Arabian oil company, Saudi Aramco. very two brief questions. Back in the 90s, there was the concept of the learning organization promoted by Professor Peter Senge in MIT. And it had a big hit then as a way of building knowledge experimentation, what have you. I would like, first of all, to hear from the distinguished panelists, what do you think now, the concept of learning organization? Is it relevant to build a repository of knowledge and in light of these changes that are happening around us? The second question is about the position of the chief knowledge officer. At one point in time, and still some companies around the globe, they are having this position which reports directly to the CEO as a person who is overseeing the entire knowledge organizational building capacity and knowledge management and what have you. Is the concept relevant now in the midst of democratizing knowledge and what have you? Thank you very much.
Okay, two very quick answers, please, and we'll take one each. Dr. Surinder, as Ron is a CKO, a Chief Knowledge Officer, I'm going to make him answer the second and tell us if he is indeed still relevant. Surinder, do you want to take the first one? You're nodding.
Okay. Yeah, I will try to answer the first question. I think it's a very, very relevant question, whether Peter Senge's learning organization is still relevant today. I think it is very much relevant. All the tenets in that book which he had written are wonderful and they are universally applicable even today, except that you have to update that with the newly emerging context of human-AI collaboration. And I would leave it at that because the scope of that collaboration and how it can moderate or how it can update the Peter Senge's tenets, that is something which needs to be discussed further, elaborated further. But very much, I think it is very much applicable even today. That would be my answer.
Ron, is the Chief Knowledge Officer yourself still relevant?
I think we're still alive. My answer would be that a Chief Knowledge Officer should be a knowledge leader and assist the organization to achieve its objectives strategically. One of the problems is a lot of KM is not strategic knowledge management requiring that leadership. It's become operational knowledge management. The executive order that was released in the States on the 30th of October, the Biden executive order is actually stating that within 6 months, every public agency has got to appoint a chief artificial intelligence officer, whether you like that or not, okay? So that's my answer to that.
Fabulous. And I love the speed as well, because we've had a flashing light here telling us that we should be off the stage. Right, gentlemen here in the front. We started a few minutes late, so I'm going to take a few liberties.
Ali Musa, Arabic Language International Council. Well, the world debate about the concept of knowledge and information and technology is always focusing on the material side of the issue. And I would like to take the concept that the devil is in the small or in the details. To what extent technology and knowledge and information are furthering the rich to be richer and stronger, and to weaken the weaker and to make them alienated? Thank you.
Ooh, there we go. Kate.
Yeah, great question. Love it. I believe technology is democratized knowledge. We have greater access to knowledge globally with a Wi-Fi connection. And now with Gen AI, we can access anything we need to know and how to do that. But the key part that's missing in all of this knowledge is actually the insights gained from the knowledge and the interpretation of that knowledge. We'll actually then look at how we apply our learnings and insights. So I don't think it's going to be unhinged by the great wealth divide. I think it actually gives tools for those people to upgrade their knowledge and expertise by allowing access to everyone. And then I think that what excites me the most, from education through to expert knowledge, we now all have greater access. But it's the intellect that requires us to finesse the skills to analyse the data, assess the knowledge, and apply that to our learnings.
Thank you. Right, we had, oh gosh, okay, the two here in the third row, and then we're going to have to cap it because they are literally flashing lights at me. This is going to be the quickest Q&A session anyone has ever seen in this hall.
Hello, I'm Nasser Isa, Associate Professor of Knowledge Management at the American University in Emirates. We have a Master of Knowledge Management there, but I'm speaking in the educational perspectives. Do you think artificial intelligence now need the regular textbook? Because you know the transformations of knowledge is so fast. So what about if we depend mainly on the research articles, because it's coming every 6 months about new trends or something like this. But education for 4 years, as you mentioned, for 3 years, based on the textbook writing, textbook take lots of time. So it's artificial intelligence, and this is massive transformation from information and worldly change can make it not relative too much for this. What do you think about it?
Ron,
Thank you.
Mr. Cambridge,
I'm not quite sure what's the
do we still need textbooks?
Oh, do we just... Yes, human beings still need to learn with the best devices they've got, the best tools they've got. That's for certain. Is that the answer to the question?
That is the question. I'm going to also ask our former academic here to give us his 20 seconds on that. Do we still need textbooks? You taught at university for a long time, sir.
Yeah, but I could not get the question correctly.
Do we still need textbooks in the time of AI?
Okay. I personally have stopped using textbooks. Let me be honest about it. And I find that the material which is available through internet, of course, a lot of misinformation, disinformation also goes along with it. But in the interest of quickness of results, I personally find that the information available currently is something which is more valuable for me. I have to dissect it, of course, to see for its objectivity. But textbook becomes outdated even before it is published. And that is the limitation of the textbook. That is my take on this, but there can be a different opinion too.
Yeah, quickly.
Just quickly, I wanted to say that I love books. I quoted Drucker because the first time you read a book or watch it on the screen, you think you know it. You go back and you read and you go deeper. You go back and you read and you go deeper. 30 years later, reading Drucker, I've got a lot deeper. I get the books out. I feel the books. I've got the underlying and the notes I made. I think that's still necessary.
We've got one last question. The lady here in the coloured top, and then I do have flashing lights telling us that the next session is waiting. So,
hi, my name is Almasa. I'm a style influencer and a thought opinion leader. And my question is directed within the principle and values. How can we keep principle, values, and human factor with the AI, not to fight it, not to kill it? And also, how can we fight the AI misused, where there is a lot of fake use that can be extremely dangerous, as Professor quote, if AI goes against, is remoting AI itself. So,
Kate, do you want to finish us off here?
Yeah, quickly for you. A couple of things that come up to mind is that we're continuing to have this conversation around ethics and regulation, and that it's an ongoing discussion I think is really key. And I'll just revert back to OpenAI and Sam and the board's comments around why Sam Altman wasn't suitable for the job was a lack of candid communication. So the ability to continue to have the conversation around regulation and ethics is really key. And then I think the idea is that what we start to look at is to continue to think critically about the information we are receiving, put a lens over it to think what are critical thinking skills that we have as humans, that we can put a lens on any information that comes our way, and that requires a level of expertise, knowledge, and some wisdom.
Right. If you have any further questions, and I know there are hands that do,
thank you so much.
Grab one of our panellists as they walk off the stage. Dr. Kate Barker, Dr. Surinder Batra, and we have Ron Young sitting here next to me. Thank you very much for being such an engaged audience.